Welcome to the Crypto Swamp Creatures, the show you never knew you needed and still don't want anyways. I'm Christopher Alexander, your blockchain and advocacy communications expert.
And I'm Justin Wallen, your guide through the often murky world of politics and polling.
Every week, we dive into the intersection of crypto, policy, and politics without taking sides. We're here to give you the straight, data-driven analysis that influences the decisions of those who want to win or want to be elected.
Think of it as a late 80s newscast, but with a twist. We bring you the serious stuff, but with a dash of sardonic wit and just a hint of irreverence.
So whether you're a crypto enthusiast, a policy wonk, or just someone who appreciates a data-driven approach, this is your place.
We bring you both sides, weigh the impact on crypto, and then we share what we use for show prep every week on our Medium.
So remember, no one is as smart as someone who agrees with you. And now get ready to enter the no swamp zone. Welcome to the Crypto Swamp Creatures. I don't know, what is this, like the 7th, 8th episode? I don't actually count them. I don't know if you do, Justin.
I can't count now, so it's lost on me.
Yeah, that's why you're pollster.
I have machinery.
So, we really try to go from the super wonky, like where Justin hates most of the crypto polling that comes out right now due to its methodology, not what it says, down to also trying to simplify this for people. So we do try to do wonky stuff. We also try to talk to people about how this stuff works in a way that sounds like plain English, because the blockchain industry is objectively terrible at that. And so today we have Paul Mikel, who is with Revo, this amazing blockchain service that in the past, when I've had appearances that I've talked about, tried to explain blockchain to people in a simple way, I've used these guys as an example. So Paul, thanks so much for jumping on with us. We're looking forward to talking with you.
Thank you for having me. And if you're talking about simplifying blockchain, I'm probably the simplest mind you're going to have on. So I didn't know any of this stuff before.
So, I've worked with Paul, adjacently to Paul, wanted to work more, but outside factors interfered with that, we'll say. Paul, in a nutshell, tell us what Revo is and why blockchain has or maybe it's deliberate, revolutionized rideshare.
Right. Well, yeah. So you say Revo. Well, the reason why we named Revo is because of the word revolution. And I wasn't thinking about blockchain or crypto or any of those kind of things when I started. I'm a traditional entrepreneur. I've owned businesses, different ones the last 30 years. One of my partners, Tony, and I owned a delivery company, and we were traditional. We did it just like Uber and DoorDash, and we ended up selling out of that because it just viable. We didn't think it was viable for a long-term business model. They were charging so much money, and usually I saw technology, and what technology does, it comes in and it changes things. But then a lot of times when you get centralized and you have these major companies owning it, it usually goes right back to having to deal with shareholders and people that you have to answer to, and you got to make that money. And so technology starts out really great sometimes, but I think it really kind of, makes it worse in the end. So about a year and a half ago, I was looking for somewhere, we had built a company that's doing a couple billion in a couple years. And if I get too much money and too much time, I get in too much trouble. And so I was looking for something, to really just, I'm not good if I'm not building something or going forward. And so at this point in my life, I really wanted to build something that I saw that was, brought value to people. And my mentor taught me a long time ago, if you find a big solution to a big problem, you usually get a big paycheck. And sometimes it goes in the opposite. Sometimes people create a big problem and get a big paycheck. And so I started looking at that, and I was out actually in Utah, and I put about $500,000 into starting an app. I've built apps before, and I've encouraged people, if you ever have the opportunity to build an app, don't, because it's not much fun. I mean, you got to deal with developers, kinks in the road. I mean, it's a long process. But I was out in Salt Lake City, and I had to get up at 5 in the morning. I had to call a Lyft. I called one of the cars. So I started looking at all the factors. I'd already put money into it, but it wasn't like a passion, like I wasn't like sold out, like all in. I knew I could make money doing a rideshare program because I knew some of the things that these other companies were doing weren't right. And I knew if I could I tell people I have a philosophy in business called outrun the bear. I don't be faster than the bear. I just got to be faster than Justin. and the bear won't catch me. So I looked at it going, okay, I don't have to do everything perfect. I just got to be a little bit better than these big corporations. And I don't have to have all the market share. I can get a little bit of it and be fine and be happy and take care of people. And so, and they make it very easy because of the way they do things. And so I had to get up at 5:30 in the morning, and that means the driver had to get up at 4, had to be up there in Sundance in the mountains, cold, rainy, everything else. We were going down the mountain, and I asked the lady, I said, let me ask you a question. She put the wear and tear on the car, all these different things, took me for an hour. I said, can I ask you how much you're making on this ride? And she said, $95. And I said, well, I just paid $263. And that's right then when Revolution and the name came about, because I it's crazy. Like, they're not even giving the drivers half the amount of money. And so I started looking at it. So I was building the company just based on a model of beating these other guys using technology. And then my partner Tony goes, about 2 weeks later, he goes, I need you to go back out to Utah, because I was actually out there to learn about crypto, blockchain, nodes, things I didn't know about. And he called me and he goes, hey, I need you to go back out to Sundance, because I think Revo is a perfect fit for utilizing blockchain technology and the things that go on. He goes, I want you to come out and learn about nodes. And I said, and he has a jet, and he had some of our friends going with him. And I said, so you want me to get on your private jet and go with the guys to learn about nudes? Like, I'm not doing that. Like, that has no interest for me with you and my friends, and most of them are bald. So that definitely didn't excite me. And
so I'm gonna stop you really quick, because I think we met at that time.
Yeah, I think so.
And I'm glad I didn't jump in there for the nudes part.
Yeah, me either. But, well, I didn't understand it, but I still took the chance, and I went out there, and then the stuff they just started talking about, it's taken me almost a year to really grasp it and understand it. But about 3 months in, I was like, this is so much better. Like, it's, if it's done right, and it's new technology, and it's, it's hard to break through those barriers. But I also know, being on the forefront of things, if I could have been involved when the internet was around, it took a long time for people to even understand that. My parents used to think it was the devil, and my guy's a technology guy. My dad, he built computers in the 80s and 70s. And so I just I just got to learn this. And so I just really dove into it.
I think they were right. I think it may actually be the devil, but maybe not the way they thought. But it's another conversation. So let me start, because I think stripping all the technology out and just explaining what the technology does and what makes Revo like such an interesting offer. Why don't we start there? So you looked at essentially all the overhead and other costs that these big rideshare apps had, and you saw a better way of doing it. What is that better way of doing it, and how do riders and drivers benefit from that?
Well, I mean, just right away, I knew if I could undercut their pricing a little bit, that's it. Like, our slogan for our company is our clients pay less, our drivers make more, and every time someone does a ride, someone gets a reward. And I tried to keep it as simple as I possibly could. So I knew if we could undercut the pricing, for our clients, that would be one thing. And making the drivers make more money, that is something that our clients get behind, our drivers get behind. So in the beginning, I put together a program where, instead of me going out and spending hundreds of millions of dollars on advertising like these other companies do, that's how they get their market share. What I did was I went out and I said, okay, I'm going to build a system, kind of almost an affiliate program, where instead of if a driver drives today, they got to drive tomorrow to get paid. They got to drive the next day to get paid. Like, they can never take off time, and they're supposed to be independent contractors, but they put them in a model where they have to ride. They have to, kind of play the system. And so I put together a system where a driver can go out and help me build the company, but benefit it over and over and over in US dollars, not even in the rewards program. So a driver can sign me up, and now, no matter where I go in the world, as we grow, that driver can get paid off of me doing rides. Same thing with our customers. So we utilize networking, and we utilize, an affiliate program to help us build the company. But then on the backside of it, utilizing blockchain gives me the ability to scale using a network of nodes, as I'm sure you'll explain a little better than I will, but a computer network where, instead of me having to go out and have all these server farms and people not knowing whether it's transparent or it's real, or who's getting charged what, everything being on the blockchain makes it so that it's out there in the open, and so that's kind of a little bit in a nutshell. But
and so again, in a nutshell, you have the drivers making more. The drivers are also recruiting other drivers and getting rewarded for it. So you're able to do, as you point out, some like kind of affiliate marketing. And then customers are also savings are passed on to them. And so let me focus in on one thing about kind of the why uh, that you're able to reduce overhead, and that being resolving a lot of back office functions using blockchain. Can you talk a little bit about that? I always love the example you give of what Uber pays for its office space, or Lyft, or whoever it is.
I mean, I don't know how much they pay for their office space, but I know I saw a study, and this is just something I saw on the internet, so it has to be true. I mean, I did a couple of sources I saw it, but one of the sources I saw, and it kind of makes sense, when you become a corporation, and you get so much waste. I mean, I've done it within my own companies before. It's like you start growing and you think you have to do all these different things, and people want job security, so they keep hiring more people and they keep saying, you know, they need to do this. Well, I saw a study where they had 33,000 employees. One of these companies has 33,000 employees at an average salary of $77,000. Right now, because of AI, because of blockchain technology, because of everything that we've put together and we utilize, and the network, I have less than 20 people. Now, as we grow and we go around the world, we're going to have more, but I can guarantee you it will never get anywhere close to that because we don't need it, you know?
And yeah, and you had mentioned earlier, I mean, when you become public, when you become at that stage of a corporation, the math changes, right? So, I mean, every company that gets larger and larger, they reach a limit on what their core capability is in many cases. There's only so many people who are going to do rideshare in the world. And, the Ubers and the Lyfts and so forth kind of reach up at their buttress depending on how that the cost equation looks. So they change their business. If you look at their R&D, how much of that is really devoted to driving people around? It's a very small amount, right? And so there's a tremendous amount of loss, always hunting for that ability to capture more market share in different ways simply to satisfy the different math of being a public company, right? You're not burdened with that.
Yeah, I don't answer to any shareholders. I answer to people that are my drivers because, they need to make money. And like as a company, I didn't take a lot of money in the beginning, and I think that's what a lot of companies do. I want venture capital, I want this, I want that. I self-funded this thing in the beginning, and now our network, to a certain extent, helps us fund it, and they benefit from that in the long run as well. So I think it's just, outside of all the technical aspects that go with blockchain and Web3, I think it's just more of a community that benefits from it. And then also, I can't mess it up. Like we have a node ownership and voting, and our drivers have a certain vote, the customers have a certain vote. And it's funny, when I do presentations around the world about this now, I say, listen, how many of you have ever seen a president that can, or CEO or owner, that by one decision, they can mess up everyone else's opportunity? And people are like, you raise their hand, I go, yeah, well, I've been that person. I had a company that was doing $2 million a year and went through a divorce. The company was built on my wife and I, and because of us and stupid decisions that we made, not unethical, not anything bad, but just that were in our own best interest, the company started going downhill, and it affected a lot of other people. Utilizing blockchain and all these things that go along with it, it has to go through a voting to make sure that it is okay for everyone, not just for me. The drivers get a vote, the customers get a vote, the node owners get a vote.
And you mentioned nodes a bit, and that is an underlying component of blockchain and how I know that you guys use it there. So, jump in here, but I'll provide a little bit of context. So,
listen, you taught me a lot of this, so.
So you figured out a way to treat drivers better, both as people and financially. And we've only talked about half of it. You have figured out a way to make rides more affordable. We'll put that under the incentivized category because you've got something else I think that are tied to nodes. And then you mentioned a bit about nodes, node ownership, and votes. So for people unfamiliar, and you alluded to one of the real values of blockchain, people get all hung up on the technical terms, but it's a new form of internet. And it's a form of internet that doesn't require servers. You basically are, whether it's on the cloud or even a personal computer, you're distributing all your computing power over this network. And that happens in the form of a ledger, which you can imagine is perfect for a business. And everyone can see what goes in and out of it, as you pointed out. Well, nodes are the backbone. So people buy these nodes and then they install them again on their computer, or they can install them in the cloud. But they begin handling all the different types of data processing that the network requires. And so this other thing that we can now start talking about, the digital rewards, you can essentially timeshare part of your computer out so the network can use it. And
it's like one of the things, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, perfect.
One of the things that really stuck in my head that Tony always uses is like you have a cell phone tower, and they're all over the place, but they don't own all the land around them. They rent a little bitty piece of that land, and then the owner of the land gets rewards in the form of money. You know, so kind of the same thing with the node ownership is I can buy a software node that helps track everything, and I get rewarded for that.
And so you buy, to be clear, you buy a Revo specific node that helps operate the Revo network. It makes it secure. It allows for all of these transactions. Everything is transparent because it's on the blockchain, so you can see it. So everyone can see what's happening. And that community, both the community of drivers and all the other great things that Paul's talked about, but also this blockchain-based community, the node owners, are able to have a say in what's happening. They are not, and by the way, none of this is financial advice, and there may be forward-looking statements. None of these things are investments like stock, but when you join the community, you operate a node, you have a say in the direction that the organization is going to go in. And that kind of leads us to the last thing, Paul, so maybe we can talk a little bit about, so you do have rewards, and I'll set this one bit up for compliance reasons. The rewards that are earned are what's considered a token, and the token can be listed on an exchange, and they could have a value, and that value moves up and down, and it's highly speculative. So having said that, nodes print these rewards, and Paul, your digital reward is actually a listed token on an exchange. Is that correct?
Right. I don't know much about that stuff. I mean, I didn't understand the rewards part about it until I could correlate it in my mind with real world stuff. It's like I have Marriott points, and every time I stay at Marriott, every time I do an action with Marriott, I get points. At one point I had 580,000 points with Marriott, greatest day of my life, and then I made a bad choice in my dating life and ended up staying at the Ritz-Carlton in New Orleans for about a week and a half, and now I have 62,000 Marriott points. But what I looked at is I saved over $6,000, I think, just by using those points. So when they started talking about rewards in the beginning, and they were like, in the beginning, they're not going to be worth anything. You know, it's 0.0000 whatever of 1 cent. But we could utilize those points to do rides, to do other stuff within our ecosystem. But if it catches on and people start utilizing the tokens, and one of the things we talk about is like, let's say you do a ride with one of our competitors and it costs you $50. But if you use a Rev token, let's say it only costs you 45. Well, people are going to want to get that discount. Well, where are they going to get those tokens? They're going to get them from the drivers who have earned them from doing drives, customers who have earned them, and then node owners. And like you said, it's on an exchange, and hopefully, who knows, it may never happen, but maybe the value of that will go up at some point.
And so and let me explain that. I'm going to very deliberately give a different program, and one that's pretty common. If you have a crypto.com Visa card, you load cryptocurrency on it, and then whenever they swipe the card, it automatically converts to the local fiat currency, and you make your payment. Well, you lock up, there's a program, I'll just leave it at that, but where you earn frequent flyer miles, essentially, every time you use your card. Same way, you get rewards for other services. Well, the rewards you get for the crypto.com card, and then we'll bring it back over to you, are on an exchange, and you can buy them. And so I had a bunch of purchases when I was paid in USDC, and those things sat there for a year, and I got like $300-400. But the actual value of those rewards, because they're sold on exchanges, they are a form of a cryptocurrency, like quadrupled. So I ended up getting like $1,200 just because it sat there, right? So taking it back again now to Revo, as you point out, you've got these frequent flyer miles, if you will, these rewards points.
Right.
Well, you can only spend your rewards points in your example for Marriott at a Marriott hotel or related piece.
Right.
Imagine if there was an exchange where you could buy and sell rewards points. That's what the Web3 version of digital rewards creates. So now you can find an exchange and you can list, or you can just sell, swap your digital rewards out. So yes, you can get them. Yes, you can offset rides within Revo. But as you pointed out, the token may have enough of a value that you could use some of your tokens and offset the cost of having to use a competitor. So
Yeah, it's funny when I talk to drivers now, I say, listen, my goal, and I know it sounds crazy, is within the first 24 months to have a driver who makes $1 million with us. And when I say that, they look at me and I go, listen, I know you're going to have to drive really fast and not sleep to make that. But if you utilize the digital rewards, and who knows if the value does go up and we go global, and it may never happen, but I could see a driver being able to use those digital rewards, like you said, and sell them in an exchange, and then other people want them, then the real supply and demand thing comes back into play, which is what, U.S. and most free markets were built on.
and if you're wondering, okay, well, why? What would the mechanism be to provide a market signal to buy these tokens? One of the things that people look at in the blockchain space is what's called the utility of a blockchain. So what does it do? On the one hand, you have meme coins, which we're going to talk about, Justin and I, on another, we have before. A lot of people don't like them. I mostly don't like them, but I have to say they do teach crypto literacy. So they do have a value there, but they're basically digital Beanie Babies, quite literally.
I just looked at crypto in the beginning. Like, the only reason some of these things went up and down is if my idiot friends with a lot of money bought it.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. And that's what and now people come up to me and like, oh my gosh, you're brilliant. You came up with something that has utility. And I'm like, I'm not brilliant, but don't tell anybody. But it does make sense that what we have is something that people use, and it makes it easier for people to understand,
Exactly.
The projects that we have within some of our ecosystems are amazing. Like, I think they're amazing with some of the other things I see out there. But like, one of my partners goes, Revo right now, and this is not me saying, it's him, so it may be wrong, but he's like, listen, you have utility behind what you're doing. People understand a rideshare. People either use it or they don't, but they still understand it. My mother's 74 years old. She'll never use it. She understands rideshare. And when I told my mom, hey, she goes, I'd never use your program, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, wait a minute. What if you went to the ladies in your church and you registered them? Some of them will use it. What if you took the money that came in for your referral part and you gave it to the church, or you gave it to your mission? Then she understood it. And that's what I think, when utility comes in, that people can understand it and they want to use it, is when it matters.
And to flesh out utility a little bit more for people, Bitcoin, it's a store of value. That's its primary utility. Decentralized finance. That's kind of Bitcoin. Another one that's well known, Ethereum. Ethereum, you can build other blockchains on Ethereum, and you can store some value on it. Solana has started to kind of become the place to launch meme coins, but it also helps you transfer money quickly. It does decentralized finance, so on and so forth. So the coins that have value, mostly, with the exception of these meme coins, like Doge, people look at, okay, are people going to use this? Is there going to be a network? Are there going to be transactions on it? Because again, as Paul pointed out, you can see all the transactions and activity. So the more activity on the network is an indicator of how useful it is. The general argument you make for what it's going to do, that's utility. And then that can get people to begin to speculate, I think is accurate, on the coin. It's like a penny stock in a lot of ways. Not in a lot of SEC ways, but as an analogy. So it's very interesting, because you might be able to do something with your rewards, but you also have this use case, this utility we're talking about, to get people who may never use a rideshare at all, but are really into crypto, to buy the tokens. So you've kind of got it covered in every direction.
That was all me then. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I had nothing. Listen, things line up when they're supposed to line up, I think. And I think that so many people have laid the groundwork, and there's so many people that are getting into Web3 and blockchain, like myself, that had no clue about it a year ago.
Yeah.
And the opportunity, once something gets to the level the internet is now, is not as great as it's just like I use the analogy as, we used to call companies internet companies, like, oh, that's an internet company. Now every company is an internet company. The same thing will happen with blockchain. I feel like, when people are using blockchain technology and they don't even know it, that's when it becomes crazy.
Right. When it becomes easy, right? When you do a transaction and it's seamless. When you're using PayPal, but you don't know it's PayPal, it's just behind the scenes. It's all those kinds of things, right? By the way, I just want to mention, I love the referral program. It's terrific in every way. And there is no better way to say thank you to your fellow man than with money. Right? I mean, it just isn't. It's pure and clean and crisp, and it just, it's a wonderful way to do it. And absent big advertising budgets, maybe at some point you'll end up doing that. But it's a great way to get things moving along.
And it's nice that some of the things that we can do within our ecosystem for our drivers is like, I mean, if you've ever been in a car with one of the drivers from another company, it's like you get in a car and it's like they may be an amazing driver, but you're never going to see that driver again. Like we just instituted a new program called Favorite Driver, where if I get in and I like that driver and I've had them, I can favorite them. Next time I get in my car, if they're on duty, I can pick them to come.
I love that. I would love that right now. So I will be pulling Revo and seeing if it's here.
Yeah, it starts building it for that driver to start building that relationship with that customer. It's like I want to give the drivers the opportunity to actually be real business owners, like these other companies say they are. And everything is done by, whoever's production. Like I believe in production. The people that produce should be the ones. Like I watch the algorithms for some of these other companies. It's like they'll get these drivers in, they'll pay them a lot in the beginning, and then they kind of use the frog in the heated pot. Yeah. Like they'll get you in, pay you more money, and then over time they'll start messing with the algorithm. Blockchain makes it so we can't do that.
And it's one of the things that I love most about my job is talking to people. I have a sickness of finding people interesting. And when Uber, when I first started using Uber, 10 years ago, when I'm a late adopter, and I travel a lot. So I'd ask them and talk to them about their experience, and without fail, the entrepreneurial aspect of it. I started this 8 months ago. Now I've got 5 cars, and 10 drivers. That conversation was constant over and over and over again. That conversation doesn't happen anymore. And I'm not suggesting it doesn't exist. It's just that conversation, I don't have it anymore. That's not the feedback.
Can I tell you it does exist? But the way it exists now is when I used to fly into Miami, every driver I'd get, because I'd always get the higher level, the driver would hand me their own business card. Say, hey, I got and I'm like, so Uber and Lyft have become a marketing arm for these private drivers. And I'm like, why don't you just embrace that? Like we had that, we're about to institute that in ours. Like I'll just tell you a quick story. Like, and that's the great thing about it is our great ideas come from everyone. Like I've got drivers that have given me great ideas on how to make it better. But like my son called me one day and I have a driver. When I go out, I don't want to wait for an Uber or whatever. When I'm in Miami, and it's crowded, I have one of my friends, he owns a transportation company. I have his guys drive for me. My son called me one day and he goes, hey, I need to use your guy. And I said, my guy's $90 an hour, right? And he goes, yeah, but remember the part you told me you don't want me to drink and drive? And I'm like, this is where he uses what I taught him against me. And I said, let me ask you a question. I said, does it have to be my guy and a $90 an hour SUV? And he goes, I don't care who drives us. We just don't want to drink and drive. So what it did is it spurred me to go, you know what? I could do that within our company, within Revo, and make it so, because there's people that don't drive. My son didn't drive till he was 19. I had to have my license as quick as I could. He didn't care because he could Uber or he could do whatever. And I said, what if I could do it for these, smaller vehicles to do by an hourly rate and then just build that community? And so everything we do is looking out for people. So
I love that.
So Justin, you're the less blockchain oriented of us.
That's a nice.
Not by much.
I may have been a spokesperson at some point. But by the way, Paul, Justin knows his story. We often take a few bizarre dives, but I was approached 4 years ago to apply to be the spokesperson for the city of Baltimore. And I had a lot of humorous thoughts about what on earth you would say at a press conference there. Like,
it's consideration.
I never heard of the city having a spokesperson, but it makes sense.
Quintuple homicides are down like 400% over last year. Right? Like, no one's
really reach. Huh?
No one's stolen a car in the harbor. It was like Baghdad bomb. But
that's some good spin.
So, but Justin, you represent our less blockchain savvy audience nobly. What do you think of this, or what questions do you have? So you can sign up and get the app, and you get these digital rewards, which have value in different ways. You could buy one of these nodes, put it on your computer, and it would handle transactions, and you could have some kind of passive rewards. I mean, I'm not guessing you'd be a driver, but I mean, you could. Justin has a couple nice cars. Would quickly become people's favorites, I imagine. So, and then
then he likes people. That will make you not like people sometimes.
And
you cure yourself.
And then what powers all of this, which is where I think we always get pulled off and focused too much. What powers all this is blockchain, which is just a kind of another form of internet. So, like, what do you think of that? Is it clear, or where do you have questions?
So, I think the challenge right now for any company and for the industry at all as a whole is illustrating this in a simple way, right? So, I'm not an engineer, but I've done stuff like that. I built my house myself. I owned a boat building company and built boats. And engineering, to me, has a mantra, right? Simple is hard, because every problem you face is complex. And the challenge in engineering successfully, beautifully, and in communication successfully, is taking the complex and making it very simple and easy to understand. And what I've heard over the course of this conversation are a number of themes that actually are viscerally understandable. The network computing, changing from a whole bunch of servers to a network that works over a broad span globally with very, very little cost. These things are pretty easily understandable even to the uninitiated. Some things are a little bit more difficult to understand, like nodes. I think the industry as a whole and those who work within it would benefit from it is really digging into and talking to people about how they understand it and which words make sense and which analogies make sense, so that when you hop on a website, no matter what it might be, whether it's Revo or whatever, any knucklehead like me can look at it and immediately understand that value proposition in 3 bullet points. I get it. I understand it. This is why it's better, faster, cheaper, or whatever the value proposition is, and make that choice. Because you've got, as you well know, you bought and sold a number of successful businesses. You've got 10 seconds, and that's it. But that 10 seconds is everything from not only capturing that customer, but their friends and their family, and right, and all those iterative network effects. And I think the industry is very much challenged right now with that, not least of which because there's a lot of kind of this precious navel gazing, clearly not with you, Paul, but with a lot of crypto specifically, and I say this without judgment, it's a human trait, we all have it, is when something's complex and we figure it out, we kind of want to hold that complexity close because it makes us better than the next person.
That's 100% true. Like, one of the things I've noticed is whenever, like when I talk to people, I don't go, hey, you want to talk about blockchain? I talk about Revo. And then as time goes on, like, people understand rideshare. They understand getting in a car, calling. I mean, I use a joke of, when we were young, our parents told us not to get in a car with strangers. Now we use our phone to have one come get us, and I tell people, listen, I'm adopted, so my parents did the opposite. As soon as I was born, they had somebody come get me in a car and take me somewhere else. But that's a sick joke, but it's still fun. But it's like, when you lead with something that's understandable, over time, the other stuff becomes, but I think you're 100% right. A lot of times when you got the people that do know this stuff and they understand it and it's so complex, when they try to explain it to someone else, like, my head was exploding for months until I talked to Christopher, and some other people that were like, yeah, it's not that hard. Let me explain it to you. Because I felt dumb. And when people feel dumb, they shut down.
Yeah.
And so now if we can make it understandable, going, hey, you know what? Rideshare is an amazing product, and we're doing good things without the blockchain. We're, saving money, giving drivers more, but we're also utilizing new technology, and this is how it works. I think that that's a better way to integrate things. Like, with me, I failed Algebra 1 twice. I failed it as a freshman and as a senior again because I loved it so much. And then I had to take it after high school. But if they would have taught me math when it came to business, like, I would have been all over it. Like, I do word problems in algebra probably every single day now. But it's like they introduced it in a way that intimidated me and scared me and made me think stupid. But now it's like, I love math. I love, you tell me a math problem, I can figure out what I'm going to make off of it. You tell me a pay plan or a problem when it comes to our algorithms, I can figure it out, but it's because it's interesting and it was easy for me to understand.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I had to say the same experience, by the way. I was rubbish with math. Not that I'm that great with it now, but before I went and got my MBA, I was raised by intellectual wolves, right? I knew nothing in the world. That was the short circuit way to kind of figure out the world. I had to go to the community colleges to learn math again, take algebra again, take geometry, all those sorts of things. And at one point, I met that one professor who illustrated it in that way that you get it. And once you get it, it's an entirely different world, and it's a remarkable tool, and it's easy, and it's intuitive, and all these kinds of things. But absent having that, when it's really, really difficult, it's very difficult. And by the way, Christopher, I hate to blow smoke up your ass, but yes, you have described this stuff in a remarkably compelling way, and I didn't understand it for beans before you started explaining it. So there's a lot of room here, and I think the industry will behoove itself.
Well, I'll say one last thing. Yeah. That teacher that told me when I said, why don't we just use calculators? And she said, oh, what are you going to walk around with a calculator in your pocket? Whenever we came out with phones, it did. I swear to God, I sent her a picture of me holding my phone.
Good, exactly.
And, I said, what now, Miss Martin?
Yeah, exactly. All that stuff it's useful in academia, but what's interesting is the application.
Well, they got me, and by the way, it's a very important lesson that when you are trying to write articles with AI or anything, the argument they gave me was you got to know that the calculator is wrong. You may not have it perfectly, but you got to know when it's way off, which is a really important lesson for AI, which sometimes make things up when you're.
I use AI every single day, but you got to go back and look at it and make sure it doesn't say something stupid or, I utilize all this technology to make my life quicker, not easier, just quicker.
So. Exactly. Well, we're up against time. Paul, it's great talking to you. Let me have you back again as things progress, and keep kind of walking.
The more I say it out loud, the more I remember it. So
well, there you go. And there have been at times proposals in Utah that have had Justin's name on it to do a bunch of this work. But one of these days, maybe we'll get it funded. So
absolutely,
absolute pleasure. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Love the company. Love what you're doing with it, and really appreciate the time you took to spend with us.
Awesome. Thanks. Have a great day.
Thanks, Paul. Travel well.
And that's all for this week on the Crypto Swamp Creatures.
We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the intersection of crypto, politics, and policy.
Remember, the data doesn't lie, and neither do we. Well, not about anything important anyways.
Until next time, stay informed, stay skeptical, stay out of the swamp.